Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining in today. I was speaking about the topic I've titled School and ADHD. And of course, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorders. I'll say a little bit about myself before I begin the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I'll really appreciate it if you can leave me questions at the comment section or send me emails and I'll respond. I'll be more than happy to respond to your question regarding today's presentation. So, I am Lola Aneke. Let me get that real quick. I'm Lola Aneke, and I hold a Master of Arts in Teaching Special Inclusive Education from Meredith College in North Carolina in the US. I'm also a certified special needs teacher from the state of North Carolina in the United States of America. I am a board certified telepractice specialist and also a board certified cognitive specialist. I'm the founder of Cadet Academy. Did you notice I smiled because I'm super excited about that organization, the great work we're doing with children with disabilities and children with specialists, as you may want to call it. Cadet Academy stands for Comprehensive Autism and Related Disabilities Education and Training Academy. And I'm also the founder of the Dual Jobs Community Center for Special Needs. It's located here in Abuja, Nigeria. I know you're listening to me from different parts of the world, so I needed to let you know what we're doing in Nigeria. I have authored 2 books, namely Special Needs Made Easy and Mastering Autism. I'm working on my 3rd book called Dyslexia Bible. And all of this is just to put out information out there regarding children living with special needs and disability and how we can provide support for these individuals so that they can contribute their own quota to the development of our nation. So they have something to offer. We just need to know how to help them. So enough said about me. You can follow me on Facebook, on YouTube. I'm subscribed to our YouTube channel. I'm also on Twitter. I'm on Instagram, and it's all at Lola Aniki. Facebook Lola Aniki. You find that information right there. Or send me an email to lola@lolaaneke.com. Now, the topic for today is School and Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's called ADHD for short. What is ADHD? It's a condition where people have difficulty with attention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, regulating their mood, and organizing themselves. Okay, that's what ADHD. And if you look at this picture right here, I give an example. Below here is a cute looking boy. And it could be that person living with ADHD, it could be anybody, it could be a child, it could be an adult, it could be good looking. It doesn't show in the face. So I hear people say, oh, it doesn't look like it has ADHD. You know, you might not be able to see it on the face. And if you look at this picture also, you realize that the class is going on, lesson is going on, and this boy is actually looking away and smiling. And these are some of the things you see. These are some of the symptoms you see, or signs you see about individuals living with ADHD. They have issues with attention, concentration, losing things, following directions, sitting still, they act out, they plot out, they get angry easily, and they get frustrated easily. There are 3 subtypes of ADHD. We have the predominant impulsive or hyperactive type. We have the predominantly inattentive and distractibility type or distractive type, and we have the combined. So we have impulsive, predominantly impulsive 1. We have predominantly inattentive, and we have both combined. I'll get to a little bit of discussion and explanation on that in the next slide. Now, we're talking about inattention and distractibility. That's the first predominant one I talked about. Some of the symptoms or the signs you will see is that the person fails to pay attention to details or make careless mistakes in homework. So for example, they might not dot their I's and cross their T's. They might not align their work properly. They're just inattentive to details, okay? They have trouble staying focused on task. So when You give them a task, for example, to complete. They just don't stay focused. They are not paying attention to all of the things that need to be done. When they're playing, they may not complete the task because they're not just paying attention. They have difficulty following through on instructions. They fail to finish their homework, like I just said, you give them a task, they don't complete it. They have trouble organizing their task and activity, what comes next, what comes first, and all of that. They have challenges with that. They dislike anything that has to do with mental focus. When you say, oh, think about it, imagine a boy walking down the road and then he saw a car coming. What do you think he should do? They can't imagine those mental tasks. It's too much focus for them, okay? They lose their things. They don't know where their pencil is. They don't know where to drop their eraser. They lose their books. They lose sometimes their sandals for school. They just misplace things generally because they're not paying attention to the importance of those things. They forget to do their homework. They forget to turn in their homework. They forget to do their chores, whatever is assigned to them. They forget to do it. So these are some of the signs or the symptoms of a person who has a predominantly inattention and distractibility kind of ADHD. Now, for a person who has hyperactivity and impulsive predominantly kind of ADHD, you realize that the person fidgets a lot. The person is always on the move, always tapping things, always wanting to touch it, wanting to touch the seat partner. The person is always on the go. You can see the picture I put right here. The child just want to lift up his chair, want to leave his chair, he want to adjust his seat, he just wants to move around. Movement, impulsiveness, hyperactivity, you're speaking, he interrupts your thoughts, when you're talking about. It doesn't wait his own turn. It just wants to, there's a lot of energy. It's impulsive, just speaking and moving around. The child interrupts. It doesn't wait his own turn. He blots out the answer in the classroom when you ask him questions. These are some of the signs and symptoms of a person or a student or individual who has a predominantly hyperactive and impulsive kind of ADHD. And of course, the combined one would be the person that exhibits all of these signs under the hyperactive and impulsive, and all the other signs under the inattention and the distractibility type. Now, what are the causes of ADHD? Research has shown that any or all of these could be the causes. The first one is brain anatomy and function. So the part of the brain that controls attention and activity, there's not much activity taking place there. So that's why the person will exhibit ADHD. Another cause could be the genes and heredity. So if a father or a mother is living with ADHD, or you find a child living with ADHD, it's most likely that the father or someone in the family, because it's hereditary and it has to do with the gene. And we all know what genetics is and what it does to us. So the child might have acquired it from the parent. Now, another cause of ADHD is significant head injury. So the person might be involved in an accident that involves banging his head. So there's an injury in the head that affected the part of the brain that controls all of the planning and all of that. So that could also be. Prematurity could also be, if a child is born preemie, it could also cause that the child might be to live with ADHD, okay? Prenatal exposure, such as exposure to alcohol, nicotine, smoking, and could also cause the child could also have the child in that kind of condition. So if the parent is exposed or the mother is exposed to all of this, it could cause the child to have ADHD or to develop some form of ADHD. And in rare cases, toxins in the environment, such as lead, could also could also be the cause of ADHD for that individual or that child. It's very important for us to know this because in our part of the world, we do not really pay attention to evidence and research, and we just assume, and assumption is not the best, a lot of people just say, oh, eating too much sugar could be the cause of the child's ADHD. Research, and there's no research or evidence to that effect that eating too much sugar could cause ADHD, or food additives, there's no research. Food additives do not cause ADHD. Allergies does not cause ADHD, neither do immunizations cause ADHD. So let's pay attention to this. Before you take out any of these things, make sure you see a professional. Before you take out sugar from your child's diet, see a dietitian, let them do a test, a proper dietary test to tell you if it's too much or it's too little, because sometimes sugar might be too little in the child system and it can also cause another kind of problem for you. So note that none of this would cause ADHD in your child, okay? Now, what are the assessments? How do you assess or diagnose ADHD? I'm going to get to that in another slide, but I needed to put it out there because a child has got a lot of energy, or the child is always jumping around or exhibiting some symptom that build out regarding inattention or impulsivity. Does not mean that your child is living with ADHD. A proper assessment must be done by a professional, which is usually a psychiatric, psychologist or a psychiatric doctor, depending on what part of the world you're in, because sometimes in different parts of this part of the world, their role interchange. They use the DSM-5, but basically what you can, assessment of the ADHD is one, clinical examination, second, interviews, and rating skills. So all of this has to be put in place, and then the professional will look at the result and analyze before they can also actually say for sure that a child is living with ADHD. And of course, formal ADHD diagnosis typically uses DSM-5, like I said initially, and then ICD-10 classification system. So there must be a form of diagnostic tool that will be used to say that a child is living with ADHD. So we don't just label a child. A diagnosis must be done. Diagnosis must be done. A professional must see the child, and they must use diagnostic tools to determine if the child is living with ADHD or not. Now, the prevalence of ADHD. ADHD prevalence rates may vary depending on several factors, okay? Age. It doesn't matter your age, ADHD. So it could be a child can be living with ADHD, an adolescent can be living with ADHD. It doesn't matter. A 2-year-old, a 10-year-old, 30-year-old, 60-year-old, 90-year-old could be living with ADHD. So it's not for young children alone. An adult also could be living with ADHD. So gender is another factor, but research has shown that it's more prevalent in male than female. So more boys than girls exhibit symptoms or could be living with ADHD. Now, the presentation of ADHD, that is the combined type or the hyperactive type or the level of severity or the impulsive type, varies also from one person to other, depending on the lifespan of the individual. Okay, it varies. Okay, so if the person is living with the hyperactive type, the severity might vary. And also if the person is living with the combined type, the severity might vary. Sometimes age-wise, as the person grows older, they might find a way of self-regulating, such that all the symptoms that were being shown when the person was younger gets better as the person gets older. Sometimes intervention and all of that could also help the situation. So presentation could vary, okay? And a lot of individuals living with ADHD also might have other kinds of disability or conditions they're living with, which is called comorbidity. So that could also be a factor regarding that could affect the prevalence of ADHD in whatever part of the world you are living it, okay? The person could also be living with another kind of disability, which we've said could be referred to as comorbidity, okay? Differences in the prevalence rate of ADHD may also vary due to population, characteristics, methodological, and environmental, and cultural differences and variability in diagnostic and variability and in the diagnostic criteria employed in the studies. So these are some of the things. I'm sorry about that distraction right now. I'm getting some noise in my kitchen. I need to close the door. Yeah, differences in the prevalence rate of ADHD may also vary due to population, characteristics, methodological, environmental, and cultural differences, and variability in the diagnostic criteria employed in the study. So different factors could affect the prevalence of ADHD. In Nigeria, where I reside and my part of the world, it is estimated that there are more than 1.5 million cases per year That's what the prevalence of ADHD is, more than 1.5 million cases per year. Imagine that. So there's a lot to be done for us to identify, be aware, and know what best to do regarding education and school for this individual. Like I said earlier on, typically development behavior versus ADHD. So because a child is exhibiting some of these signs does not insinuate or does not mean that the child is living with ADHD. Most healthy children are inattentive, they're hyperactive or impulsive at one time or the other. Does not give us the right to say this child is living with ADHD. Also, children should never be classified as having ADHD just because they are different from friends or siblings. So don't compare. Don't say, why is my first boy more quiet than my second boy? This one is living with ADHD just because he has a little bit more energy than the other one. So we cannot afford to compare, and that is not a criteria or the basis for us to say or to label a child as living with ADHD, sorry. The children who have problems in school but get along well at home or with their friends are likely struggling with something other than ADHD. So if a child is exhibiting some of the symptoms under either an impulsive kind of ADHD or the hyperactive or the combined, and is not exhibiting it in other settings. So for example, if the child is always jumping or sitting down, moving around in school, but at home he sits still, or in other places, in grandma's place, in his aunt's place, he sits quietly, then it might not really be ADHD, maybe some other kind of challenge, and that's why some people sometimes misinterpret the symptoms of ADHD with learning disability. And I think I have a little bit of explanation of that in my slides, in my upcoming slides. So yeah, we need to take note of all of this, that children will be children, and because we see some of the signs of ADHD does not mean that they are living with ADHD. To avoid that speculation or assumption, you need to see a professional. If you're in doubt, check with the professionals that you can have your assessment or diagnosis done. Now in school, students with ADHD may exhibit any of this, any of this. And they demand attention by talking out of turn or moving around, I said that under the different subtype, they want to move around. But because we're talking about ADHD and school, the child might just be moving around, doesn't want to sit still, cannot sit for more than 5 minutes. You need to touch something, having trouble following your instruction in the classroom when you present so many things to him at one time. So for example, you say, we're going to have numeracy, and after numeracy, we have literacy, after literacy, we have computer skills, after computer skills, we have science. That child is not going to retain all of those information because it's too much for him. Remember, when we know why something is happening, we'll find better ways to help and provide support for that child. So now knowing what the symptoms of ADHD will be, what we now have to do is to find out alternative ways of supporting that child, okay? They often forget to write down their homework and assignments. They forget to do it. They forget to turn in their homework and assignments. They often like fine motor control. So sometimes their note-taking skill is very poor. You are sometimes unable to read what they've written. Even they themselves, I've worked with a child like that. I couldn't even read what he wrote. So sometimes it affects their fine motor coordination. Okay. Now, sometimes they have problem with long-term projects. So you don't want to give them a project that will take like 2-3 weeks. And if you do, you need to always check in on them to be sure they're on track, they're following the schedule as ought to be. They have challenges with that. And then they seem not to be pulling their weight. Sometimes you say, oh, he's not serious, he's just not being serious. He's just too playful. We find some of this are the challenges that students with ADHD may exhibit in school. And that brings me to ADHD and executive function. What is executive function? Simply put, it is the mental function that controls our thoughts, and it helps us to organize our day and the tasks we need to perform. And it actually involves the frontal lobe of the brain. Remember, we talk about damage to the brain or something, not an activity in the brain that's not working appropriately. And if a child has executive dysfunction, so like I said earlier on, executive function is more like seeing a conductor of an orchestra. So there's a music orchestra going on, there's an orchestra going on. That person that says, pianist, it's your time to play. Now, lead singer, your time to play. Guitarist, it's your time to play. That's what executive function does to us. It's in the frontal lobe of our brain, and it tells us what to do, how to avoid some issues, how to plan our day, what we should do first, second, and third. So whenever we say, what's your to-do list for today? Is that part of the executive function that is telling you, my to-do list, I do 1, I do 2, I do 3, I do 4. All of those are to do with the executive function of an individual. And these are some of the skills that we need to flourish in school, in a school environment, or in our education, or on our academics. Ability to manage yourself, ability to plan, ability to prioritize are some of the issues that we may have challenges with. So that's, if a person has a executive dysfunction, this could be an issue with the person. So ADHD and executive dysfunction. An individual with ADHD may have impairment in several areas of executive functioning. So if the person is living with ADHD, it could have issue with controlling, focus, and I'll get to that really soon. Impairment in executive function can have a major impact on the person's ability to perform tasks. I said that earlier on in planning, prioritizing, organizing, paying attention to remember details, and control emotions and reactions. Okay, somebody does something to that child mistakenly, he wants to revenge almost immediately. He doesn't want to understand why the person did that and put the person's point of view into perspective. You know, the teacher is teaching, is hitting someone else, and that's what ADHD does and how it affects executive functioning. Again, executive functioning deficit may affect students in the following areas: their focus, ability to pay attention. This is a skills that we need to do well in a learning environment or in school. Effort, carrying your momentum, your processing speed, level of awareness. Emotions, you're managing your frustrations, regulating your emotions. Memory is another way it could affect your ability to use your working memory as accessing information and recalling it, you know. All of those could be affected, okay? Then action, monitoring, and self-regulating. Did I do this right? I just did an addition, a task in addition. I had 1 pencil plus I was given another pencil. How many pencils do I have? The ability to pay attention and say 1 pencil, and I was given another one, means I have to add another one to the other pencil. All of those are some challenges, that some areas that could be affected when it comes to executive functioning in a child. So these are some of the deficits that child might have or that student might have. Now, what are the strategies for supporting students with ADHD? Now, we are looking at all the issues and the challenges, the symptoms. We are looking at how, what causes it, which for me is most important when you know what causes a particular disability or a particular challenge. Then as human, as teachers, as parents, as members of the society, we'll be able to empathize with that person and look for ways to support or to help the person live an easier life, so to say, as opposed to paying more attention on the person's deficit, okay, as opposed to rubbing it in and calling names and stigmatizing that person. When we understand why, then we'll be able to provide more support without being judgmental, okay? So now we are going to the strategies, how to support a child with ADHD at school. We can never, never, never overemphasize the importance of accommodation. What is accommodation? How you can make learning easier for a child with ADHD. Simply put, that's what accommodation is. For those of us listening who might not understand what accommodation is, how do I make this task based on the child's weaknesses, challenges? How do I focus on ways to make learning easy for this child? And then of course, our instruction must be, the method we use must be explicit, it must be easy, it must be accessible, and it must be beneficial to that child, okay? However method we want to use in teaching must consider that child's need, okay? And then our intervention, how do we help to reduce any challenging behavior that might obstruct the child's learning? Of course, concentration will be an issue, distraction will be an issue for that child and other students in the classroom. So how do you manage all of those? Now, the do's and the don'ts. You don't want to focus on the symptoms of the ADHD in the child, be it impulsive, be it hyperactive, or the combined type. Please do not focus on those. Do more of targeting the specific problem behavior directly and selecting an alternative or replaceable behavior for that behavior, okay? And before you can do that, you need to know about functional behavior assessment. You need to have to know about the ABCs of behavior, and that will be a topic for another day. But today, I'll be sharing with you some strategies that you can use to be able to support the child based on the symptoms or the signs you're seeing. And here we are, managing distractibility. So in order to manage distractibility in a child who exhibits such, you need to ensure, because of course the child is easily distractible. So you don't want to put the child near the window where you see everybody working and is distracted, or put a child where there are objects or moving things. So sometimes in our classroom, we are doing some experiment, or we have some class pets and all of that. You don't want to put that thing near that child, because that child or that animal near that child, or whatever it is, music box, whatever it is near the child, because the child will always pay attention on those as opposed to what learning should be. The child will be easily distracted. You want to give the child alternative seating arrangements, okay? The arrangement for that child has to be to meet his need. If the child is a child that likes to move around, get him a seat where that he can easily, move on the seat. Put him in a place, in a seat where he can move around. You want to box him up, because that will keep affecting your classroom, okay? And you might want to also ensure that you incorporate your lesson has to do with a lot of tactile activity and movement activity. The child is able to move, because that's what helps him to do better, okay? You don't want him to stop. You don't want to keep saying stop, stop, stop. When you say stop, remember it's beyond the child. So ensure that you provide things in place, structure in place that will help him to use energy, so to say, okay? Your sitting arrangement, make sure that there's physical activities in your lesson, okay? Now, write important information down where the child can easily read. So, for example, if the child is a child that is easily distracted and you want him to be able to, for example, pay attention to what you're saying, you might want to let him know that when the class is going on, I need to look at the teacher. If I do not understand what the teacher is saying and for some reason I'm drifting away, I might have to wait up my red card or something to say, look, I'm getting lost right now and I need a break or something. Let the child put things in place to be able to support the child's ability to communicate to you what he or she is feeling at that time, as opposed to just assuming that the child will know what to do by himself or herself. So let that be in place for the child. Or you might want to put that as part of your classroom rules. Or it could even be for the child alone, that the child knows that, oh, this is for me, and it's be on his table and he can see what is going on. And then of course, because the child is easily distracted, you don't want to give, so for example, if the whole class is having like 10 questions or 10 exercise in a mathematics task exercise, you might want to give 2 at a particular time, and then you wait. When it's done, you're observing if the child is doing what it's supposed to do, then you do another 2. When the child is done, then the child does another 2. So giving breaks in between, also frequent breaks, also help the child to achieve more tasks in your classroom, as opposed to giving him a 10 exercise and then just saying, I'll get back to you. You don't want to do that, because you've lost that child and the child might not learn in your classroom. So those are some of the things you can do. Now, the way to manage impulsivity is, 1, make sure a written behavior plan is near the student. So like I said earlier on, you might want to also put a behavior plan, something not too long. So for example, if the child is a type that blot out answers when you're asking a question, you want to let the child know that, look, in this classroom, whenever we need to answer a question, this is how we go about it. We raise up our hands. And when we raise up our hands, you wait for the teacher to call upon you. You wait to be called upon. And once you're called upon, you answer the question. So you might just want to put those rules for the child on the table and say, first, I raise up my hands. Second, I wait to be called upon. Third, I answer the question. Okay, so that when a child feels like getting out the answers, it simply look at the steps, the strategies that it needs to perform to be able to answer question in your classroom, and that will really help that child to do well in your classroom. Okay, and you need to give consequences immediately following a misbehavior. So if, for example, that child, you have explained to that child, you have modeled how to ask questions in your classroom, you've shown the child how to do that, and that child still yells out or blots out answer, you need to let the child know what the consequence for that behavior would be. You could let the child know that once you do that, you're going to have to go sit down in a thinking through corner. As a teacher, I have something like that, like you have a place in your classroom where the child knows that that's where I'm going to sit down and think through my behavior, as opposed to saying, stop it, don't do that next time. You keep distracting your own class too. So, and your lesson. So the child goes there. When it does that, immediately don't wait to give the consequence of that behavior later, because the child might not be able to attach that behavior to the consequence. Okay, make sure the consequence is dished out immediately. Okay, and then yes, so and when the child is in that thinking through corner, I call it that thinking through corner, because I want you to be able to identify what you did wrong, and I want you to be able to tell me what you can do better. So I yelled out the answer when you ask the question, what could I have done better? Or next time I will think it through by looking at the strategies for me asking question, by raising up my hands, waiting to be called upon, and answering the question. And before you know it, you see that the child is behaving as it ought to behave in your classroom when it comes to answering questions. Another good thing you want to do in managing is to recognize good behavior out loud. So if the child raised up his hand, okay, when you ask question, a good way to encourage that behavior, to keep reinforcing that behavior, to say, thank you for raising up your hands to answer that question. Or I love the way you raise up your hands to answer that question. Everyone wants to feel good about themselves. So that child would definitely want to repeat that behavior. Okay. Now, it's also very good for you to write out the schedule for the day on the board or on a paper for that child, okay? So that the child understands what his day is going to look like. Most times they just feel that there's so much going on, and sometimes this triggers the behavior too. So you want to be able to have the child see what he has first. I have numeracy, I have literacy, I have self-help skill, I have science, I have biology, I have physical education, and that way the child is able to control his feelings, is able to calm down, to enjoy the classroom, because he can easily check and know what he has first, what he has second, what he has third. So having a schedule for that child will help him to do well in your classroom. Now, for a child who fidgets and deals with hyperactivity, that child loves to move around, wants to jump, wants to walk around, you might have the child be your class rep. You want the child to run errands for you. So he's the one that is going to be sharing probably the class notes for that day. He's the one that's going to be sharing pencils. He's the one that's going to be helping you. He's just going to be your classroom help for that day. That way he's able to use energy. He's able to do what he wants to do without distracting your classroom. You want to encourage the child to play sport because he has a lot of energy. He wants to move around. He wants to. He's a kinesthetic person. He's a tactile person. He wants to move around. So encourage the child to engage in sporting activities. Never, never, never take away recess from that child. Don't use it as a consequence for the behavior. The child needs that recess. He needs to move around. He needs to jump around. Never take it away from the child. Okay. Then you want to provide a stress ball, okay, for that child, because the child needs to move things around. The child needs to move things around. You want to have a stress ball, you want to have a squishy for that child so that the child can be able to move his hands. If the child is a type that needs something, please don't say stop, because he can't stop it. It's beyond him. He needs something to hold to be able to regulate himself. So provide and encourage that for the child. And of course, you want to limit screen time. And some of these strategies can be used at home also. You don't want a child to be seated on in front of the screen just watching TV all day. That's not going to encourage the child. That's not going to help the child to reduce the fidgety and hyperactive behavior. Okay. So screen time in favor of time for movement is a no-no. Okay. So limit screen time and encourage more of movement time. Thank you. So dealing with trouble following directions, how do you manage that? You need to break down your task. You need to break down your direction to that child. So if, for example, you wanted the child to get something from the cubby, you want to tell the child, go to the cubby. That'll be the first information. When you get to your cubby, look at the first cubicle. When you get there, on the right, you'll see a red pencil. And then you have the child pick the red pencil, okay? Now, you don't want to put all of those information together. Go to the cubby, look at the first cubicle, look for a red pencil among other pencils and bring it to me. That's too much information. Take it one instruction after the other for that child. And that also goes for the child's learning to break the instruction one after the other. Keep it very brief. Don't jumble it all together. If for any reason the child gets off track, simply redirect the child without shouting. Calmly, with a firm voice, tell the child, are you still on your way, or are you at the cubby yet? Now, okay, you are at the cubby, fine. Now look at the first cubicle. Okay, so these are the ways you can help that child to follow direction. And whenever possible, depending on the age of the child, you want to write that instruction on a sheet of paper or on the board for the child to follow and check. Okay, I've done instruction 1, followed by instruction 2, followed by instruction 3. And these are ways you can help the child to deal with following directions. Now, how do you also help the child with ADHD? Remember, they're going to have to learn in the classroom. So when you have a mathematics task, how do you help the child to enjoy that whatever activity you're having in your lesson? Use games, use cards, use dice, use dominoes, use abacus, use things that will help them to move, to use their fingers to learn. You let them use their fingers. So for example, if I was going to teach a child addition, and I now say, I have 5 pencils and I have another 5 pencils. I was given another 5 pencils. How many pencils do I have altogether? A simple way of using the finger that I use is, so I say I have 5 in my head, and then another 5 in my fingers. So I'm going to count forward from 5, and then I go 5 in my head, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10 pencils altogether. They must be able to feel, to touch what you're talking about. Another good way is for the child to draw. Have the child draw what you're talking about. 5 pencils or 5 balls. I have 5 balls, and I give 2 balls away to Femi. How many balls do I have left? So the child will draw the 5 balls and stroke out 2 that I gave away. When it's able to see it, the child will do better. Make it fun by using that. And then you can use acronyms. There are 7 days. There are 7 days. There are 7 days in the week: Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturdays. All of this. And you can devise any form of acronym. There's no rules. Whatever works for acronyms, do it. First letters, songs, whatever it is, to help that child understand and enjoy your mathematics class or lesson. For reading to these children works a lot. Read to the child, use quality time, use an environment that is calm and relaxing to read to the child. Like I said earlier, these strategies can also be used in the classroom, at home, anywhere. As long as you are interested in supporting a child with ADHD, reading to them would help along with helping them in their in their literacy skills. Help them make predictions. So for example, you could be reading a book and you could say something like, it was a rainy day, it was a rainy day, and Sade forgot her umbrella at home. What do you think would happen to her? Will she get drenched in the rain, or will she be dry? And then the child is also feeling, of course the child will say it's going to get wet. The child will get wet because Sade doesn't have an umbrella with her to use because it's raining, So, and then you might want to also act the story, acting at the child dress up, create like a theater where the child can act it out. The child can talk about the story they've read by acting. It stays longer when they're involved in the process of acting of what they've read. Okay, so these are some of the ways you can help the child with reading. The child with ADHD enjoy reading. How do you help the child to get organized in your classroom? You have to establish your classroom arrangement. Has to be well organized yourself. The child needs to know where to place in their homework, where to retrieve their homework from. And when you do this, you need to ensure that you teach the routine of your class. When I get into the classroom, the first thing I do is to drop my homework from, the first thing I need to do is to pick up my homework from my bag, put it in the homework in file, okay? There'll be a file for dropping in homework. And then of course, at the end of the day, when I'm going home, I must always check if there's any homework for me, and I'll bring it out in the file out folder or the space you created for that. But before you can do that, you have to teach it, model it to the child, and so that the child will understand where to drop off the homework and where to get the homework back. And that's the way of getting organized. And then you also want the child to understand where to drop things. Routine helps. So when you get into the classroom, you go to your cubby, drop your bag in your cubby, put your folder in a particular place. This is where you drop your cups, your water bottles, and all of that. Putting all of those things in place will help the child to understand how to get organized in your classroom. If possible, give extra textbooks at home, so that if the child forget textbooks or for the homework at home, you can always use the one at home. And that's where parents, school home collaboration is very important, so that you can understand what the challenges the child is going through, and then you can communicate ways to help the child. Okay. And then another good way to help that child to get organized is to provide checklists such that the child knows what he has done. Okay, today class is over. What did I do? Did I drop in my homework? Check. Did I drop my bag in my cubby? Check. Did I drop my cup in the cubby? Check. Did I pick when school is over? Did I pick up my homework? Check. Did I pick up my water bottle? Check. Did I pick up my bag? Check. And all of that. That will help the child to be able to self-regulate and understand and manage and organize him or herself. Sorry. Now, how do you help the child to get homework done? As a parent, as a teacher, you need to pick a specific time or place for homework. And that place has to be free of every distraction, TV, things that will help him just be looking around and want to play toys. It has to be free of that, okay? So you need to pick a specific place and time. So a good way to do that is to have an analog clock, or you can even create one and say 1 o'clock I get back from school, I have my lunch. By 1:30 or by 2 o'clock I have my lunch. By after my lunch, by 3 o'clock I have my nap. By 4 o'clock I do my homework. So the child knows that every 4 o'clock is homework time. Okay, and you can use picture too. If you Google samples, or even on Pinterest, you can see samples of analog clock that helps with organization for that child. And then you just put it in a specific place. The child knows when to look at what he has next for the day and all of that. And then when the child is having that homework, it might be an homework that could last for 30 minutes. You can create 10 minutes interval. So the child takes a break after every 10 minutes and then go back to the work. Remember, you don't want the child to get lost. You don't want the child to be distracted, and you want to be able to work based on the child's needs. So you don't want the child to just sit for that long. You need to understand how long it can sit for and give breaks, frequent breaks based on the child's need. And of course, you have to be consistent with what you do. So you don't want the child having his homework by 4 o'clock today, and then you say, no, tomorrow you do it by 2 o'clock, and the next tomorrow you do it by 1 o'clock. Consistency is very key when it comes to helping these children to get their homework done, particularly children with ADHD. I'm talking about children with ADHD right now. And that brings me to the end of this presentation. Okay, thank you so much for listening. And if you have any question for me, please leave me comments in the comments section, or send me personal email at Lola. So lola@aniki.com is my email address. Send me personal email and I'll be more than happy to respond to your questions. Thank you. And these are my references. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you some other time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.